and then depending on who you ask or which reference books you're looking in, finish, stuff like that. Welcome back to Rewind with bschwitty, because bread makes you fat. Today we're going to talk about some wine basics. I realized I started this with the intent of wine education and of a way that we can talk to each other about wine while sharing glasses and things of the like. But what I haven't gone over yet is how to talk about it, how to taste. And that's kind of a fundamental thing about wine. There's people who just gulp it, which it's a method. It's a way to drink wine. And if it brings you enjoyment, more power to you. But if you stop and smell the roses, as they say, or smell the wine, it could be a little bit more rewarding than just chugging or slapping the bag. So, to fully appreciate and assess wine, there are certain things that we should do. Sommeliers, wine critics, winemakers, they usually regard the following when tasting wine: sight, smell, and taste. And then, depending on who you ask or which reference books you're looking in, finish, stuff like that. But for three main things, we're going to start with sight. Sight, that is what the wine looks like. This is another Malbec of mine. I really like it. Anyways, if you look at the color of the wine, it should be able to tell you things like age. Younger white wines will tend to look either a pale yellow or a yellow green, and as they age or have a heavier oak profile, will be more in a goldenrod straw color. And finally, when they're over the hill, sometimes they'll turn orange to brown. Whereas red wines, youthful red wines will have dark, brighter purple colors to more of a ruby red. The older it gets, they'll develop more of a brick red quality to maybe a red brown. And then we have the swirling, which some people may find difficult. Some people like to do it in the air. I fear people who do that. The best way to swirl, you take your glass, you set it on a counter or a table, like so, and then you just give it a quick little rotation. And then that will leave things like legs, which aren't really scientifically accurate, but they will help you determine viscosity, which in turn can help you kind of ballpark alcohol and or residual sugar, because viscosity is somewhat of a function of the alcohol content and the residual sugar in a wine. But like I said, it's not an exact science, it's more of a barometer. And also swirling, you may see me just do it as a knee-jerk reaction. It'll also help open and aerate the wine, which will release more of the bouquet and the aroma. Moving on, smell is probably the most important aspect of tasting wine. You only have really 4 or 5 tastes that you can taste. That would be sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, depending on your opinion of umami as a taste versus a combination of other tastes. While there are only these 4 or 5 things that you can taste, there are over 2,000 different unique smells out there. 200 of which can be used to describe wine. So when you're tasting, even on the palate, what you're tasting when you think you're tasting like fruits and such, it's actually the aromas going up your nasal cavity and hitting the olfactory system, and using your olfactory memory to bring out your memories of where you've smelled it before. But I'll get to that in the next section, or actually this section. So let's do some definitions. A bouquet is the total smell of the wine, which sounds very vague. The aroma is the smell the grapes give off. So especially in a youthful wine, you would probably say aroma more than bouquet. And that can range anywhere from like the fruits that you smell from the grapes to any hidden spices or mineralities that the varietal may produce. And then you'll hear people talk about the nose, which is a combination of the bouquet and the aroma. Moving on to taste. When you're tasting wine, you want to look for these things. The sweetness, it'll hit you first, so right on the front of the palate. This wine here is quite dry, but if there is a sweetness, it'll hit you up front. You'll be able to tell instantly if the wine's sweet or not. And don't confuse sweetness for fruitfulness. A wine could have no sugar in it and still be super fruity. Next is acidity. That's kind of going to be on the side of your mouth. The best way I learned how to measure acidity is when you drink the wine. After you drink it, your mouth will start to salivate, and the amount of salivation will tell you the amount of acid in the wine. It's definitely something that you have to kind of figure out yourself, which kind of like the alcohol, you could train yourself to guess how much alcohol is in a wine kind of by using a barometer from, well, it's an easy test. You take a sip. You wait 5 seconds and then you breathe in. And you can kind of feel right here in between your lungs and the center of your chest kind of a warming sensation. And the amount that it reaches out kind of tells you how hot the wine is. The only way you can calibrate this is if you drink a lot of wine and look at the label to see how much alcohol is in the wine and just kind of use those as references. Eventually you'll kind of get the idea. The next thing you look for is the bitterness, and it's kind of that astringent quality that's going to be on the back of your tongue. An astringent wine kind of could mean multiple things. Sometimes it means there was stem inclusion. Sometimes it means that the grapes were picked when it was underripe. Actually, those are the two main things I could think of off the top of my head. Next up is tannins. And so tannins are kind of that ineffable quality about wine. It's that chalky grittiness that you start to feel when you're drinking red wines. Obviously more dominant in red wine varietals because you get that extraction from the skins during fermentation that you get the tannins from. Tannins can also come from the containers that the wines were aged in. Stainless steel won't give you tannins, whereas oak, depending on the char, will give you a variety of tannins. And then from there, you'll look at the fruit and varietal characteristics. This is more of olfactory memory. You kind of confirm what you smelled or if it changed on the palate. That's really fun when it smells one way and tastes completely different. The weight of the fruit that you taste is generally referred to as the body. When people talk about the weight of the wine, it's kind of just how it sits on the palate. And finally, there's the aftertaste, the finish, that lingering wine after you've taken a sip. The longer it lingers, the better. And you want to see how long it maintains that balance that the wine had across the palate. Actually, you just want to make sure that it does have a balance in the first place. Just kind of, it allows you to mull over the entire experience of the wine. So what we've done is, instead of gulping it down, we've looked at it, we've smelled it, and then we've taken a sip and allowed for all that to process. And then that lingering finish, that will allow you to kind of just gather your thoughts about the wine. But remember, what is most important is if you liked it. It doesn't matter if the wine's bad. If you can't talk about it, you can't explain to other people why you like it. And from there, you won't be able to explore other wines that you could possibly like. What I'm saying is, if you learn how to taste wine, you could discover more wine, and it's just a continuous cycle of finding new wine and enjoying new wine, which is my hope for all of you out there. And also, one last note, don't pigeonhole yourself. If you find the one wine that you love, hopefully it's going to change year to year, because there's differences in weather and growing conditions and fermentation conditions, aging conditions. No wine is exactly the same year to year, unless you're in a giant corporation that has scientists that are dedicated to making sure that the chemical chains in your wine are exactly the same. But then there's no fun. You need the artistry. You need the boutique wineries to kind of just to make it fun. If you're drinking wine and it's a hollow experience to you, seriously, just go out tasting. Taste something new. Look for something fun. And on that note, thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing, and sharing. Sharing would be great. If you know someone that's really into wine right now, just starting to get into wine, and you think this would help them, please throw this on their Facebook page, comment them in the video, what have you. And we'll see you next time for Wine Down Wednesday.